What if the person lying next to you every night isn't really with you anymore? What if the smile you see, the words you hear, the promises you're told are just a mask hiding something you don't want to face? Deep down, you've felt it. You've seen the shift in their eyes. You've heard the hesitation in their voice. You've sensed the distance. And maybe you've told yourself you're imagining things. Maybe you've convinced yourself you're overthinking. But let me tell you something. Your instincts don't whisper without reason. Loyalty isn't about words. Anyone can say, I love you. Anyone can promise forever. But loyalty shows up in action, in consistency, in the quiet, everyday choices that prove devotion when no one else is watching. And when those choices start to change, when the behavior no longer matches the words, that's when you need to wake up. Because betrayal rarely comes crashing in all at once. It comes quietly, slowly, like cracks forming in glass. And if you're not paying attention, those cracks will shatter everything you thought was real. Today, I want to open your eyes to the signs you may have been ignoring, not to hurt you, not to fill you with fear, but to give you strength, to remind you that your worth is too high, your value too great, to be played with by someone who can't honor loyalty. So lean in, because what I'm about to share with you might just reveal the truth you've been too afraid to see. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. Think about the way a relationship begins. At the start, words flow easily. You stay up late talking about everything and nothing. There's laughter, there's openness, there's a natural rhythm. Communication feels alive, effortless, and full of energy. But over time, if something starts to shift, if loyalty begins to fade, communication is the very first place you'll notice the cracks. It doesn't happen with a big announcement. It doesn't even happen all at once. It creeps in quietly like a slow fade of color until you suddenly realize the picture you're staring at looks dull and lifeless. Silence becomes the new language, not peaceful silence, the kind of silence that suffocates. The conversations that used to be full of depth turn into small talk. The how was your day becomes a hollow routine instead of genuine curiosity. And when you press for details, the answers come short, vague, clipped. You start to feel like you're talking to a stranger, someone who's physically there but emotionally checked out. Now, here's the thing. Loyalty thrives in transparency. When someone is committed, they don't hide behind vague responses or dodge questions. They want to share. They want you to know where they are, what they're doing, what they're thinking, not because you're demanding it, but because that's what loyalty does. It naturally pulls you into each other's world. But when disloyalty sneaks in, that openness closes off. Words shrink, stories become inconsistent, and you're left piecing together fragments that don't add up. Imagine this. You ask them where they've been, and suddenly their answers sound rehearsed, like a script. The times don't match up. The details are fuzzy. Or worse, they get defensive. Why are you asking me that? Don't you trust me? They turn the spotlight on you, as if your questions are the problem. But remember, when someone is truly loyal, they don't fear questions. They don't need to get defensive. They know their actions match their words. It's only when the truth starts cracking that the walls of defensiveness go up. Another shift you'll notice is in the tone. Words can lie, but tone rarely does. Pay attention not just to what is being said, but how it's being said. That warmth, that eagerness to share, that energy that used to light up their voice, it's gone. Instead, conversations feel forced, transactional, almost like an obligation. It's the difference between someone wanting to talk to you and someone who feels like they have to. And then there's the silence between the words. The text left unanswered, longer than before. The calls they can't take. The excuses that pile up. I was busy. I didn't see your message. I'll call you later. Over time, it becomes a pattern of distance, a pattern of avoidance. And each unanswered message is a tiny betrayal of the connection you once had. You see, communication isn't just about exchanging words. It's about energy. It's about presence. It's about showing up. When someone is loyal to you, they're loyal with their time, with their attention, with their availability. But when that begins to fade, when you suddenly feel like you're intruding just by asking a simple question, that's not love, that's avoidance. And avoidance is a sign that something deeper is happening behind the scenes. Now, I want you to ask yourself this. Have you been making excuses for the silence? Have you been convincing yourself that they're just stressed, just busy, just tired? Because let me be clear, people make time for what matters to them. If someone has time to scroll on their phone, time to talk to friends, time to go out, but they suddenly don't have time to talk to you, that's not busyness, that's a choice. And choices reveal loyalty. One of the most dangerous things in a relationship is when silence becomes the new normal. Because silence doesn't just create distance, it creates doubt. And doubt is poison. You start questioning yourself. Maybe I am overthinking. Maybe I'm too demanding. But hear me, when someone is loyal, you don't have to wonder. You don't have to decode their words or sit in confusion. You feel secure because their communication reassures you. When loyalty is gone, confusion takes its place. And here's where you need strength. Don't ignore the silence. Don't normalize the distance. Don't explain away the inconsistencies. Because every time you do, you're training yourself to accept less than you deserve. You're teaching yourself that crumbs of communication are enough, when deep down, you know you want the full meal. Loyalty doesn't give you pieces of truth, it gives you the whole truth. Let me remind you, silence isn't just the absence of words. It's the absence of connection. And when connection fades, it's often the first clear sign that loyalty has already started to slip away. Pay attention. Don't just hear the words, listen to the silences between them. Don't just accept the excuses. Look at the patterns. And most importantly, don't betray yourself by pretending you don't notice. Because deep down, you always do. When communication changes, when silence replaces openness, it's not just a phase, it's a message you must have the courage to face. Because the sooner you face it, the sooner you can decide what to do with the truth staring back at you. And truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living in the dark. Secrecy has a way of creeping into relationships like shadows at sunset, quiet, slow, and almost unnoticeable at first. It begins with small things so subtle you might even dismiss them. A phone turned face down on the table, a sudden need for privacy where there was once openness, a quick exit from the room. When a message comes in, it doesn't scream betrayal right away, but it whispers it. And if you're not paying attention, those whispers will grow until they drown out the trust you once had. In a healthy relationship, transparency isn't forced, it's natural. When someone is loyal, they don't feel the need to guard their every move. They don't panic if you glance at their phone, they don't hide their social interactions, and they don't suddenly build walls around simple questions. Loyalty creates openness. But disloyalty thrives in secrecy. And the moment secrecy begins to take root, it starts suffocating the connection between two people. You'll notice it in how routines begin to shift. Maybe they used to leave their phone on the counter without a second thought, and now it's always glued to their hand. Maybe they used to share passwords or let you use their device, and now there's a sudden lock, a new passcode, or an excuse. I just need my privacy. Privacy and secrecy are not the same thing. Privacy is healthy. It's about individuality. Secrecy, on the other hand, is about concealment. It's about creating barriers because there's something they don't want you to see. And here's the truth. People who have nothing to hide don't act like they're hiding something. If their behavior suddenly shifts to protecting their devices, avoiding eye contact, or over-explaining their whereabouts, you need to listen not to their words, but to their actions. Actions rarely lie. They may tell you they're just tired, just stressed, distracted, but the secrecy in their behavior speaks louder than their excuses ever could. Think about the times you've asked a simple question like, where were you? Or who were you with? If their loyalty is intact, their response will be natural, consistent, and open. But when disloyalty seeps in, their answers change. They hesitate, they give you a version of the truth that feels trimmed down, carefully packaged. Or worse, they react with irritation. They throw the question back at you. Why are you asking me that? Don't you trust me? That deflection is a tactic. It's designed to shift your focus from their secrecy onto your doubt. Let's be clear, trust isn't about blind faith. It's about patterns. And when the patterns you've grown to rely on disappear, when openness turns into closed doors, when once shared routines become hidden, that isn't love protecting itself. That's deception planting roots. Secrecy can also show up in the way time is accounted for. Maybe they used to be predictable, reliable, and consistent, but now there are gaps in their day. they can't explain. Long stretches of unavailability, late nights at work that never used to happen, sudden changes in habits or places they spend time. And each time you question it, you're fed a half answer that leaves you more confused than reassured. Confusion is not the byproduct of honesty. It's the residue of secrecy. Another form of hidden behavior is overcompensation. Sometimes when people are hiding something, they swing to extremes. They become unusually attentive, showering you with affection to mask the distance growing underneath. They use distraction as a tool, gifts, sudden gestures, sweet words. The gestures mean nothing if they are built on secrets. You cannot buy back trust with roses or hide dishonesty under compliments. This is why you must train yourself to see beyond the surface. Don't just listen to what they say. Observe what they do. Don't get lost in the grand gestures. Notice the small inconsistencies. Secrecy is rarely loud, but it's always there. If you're willing to face it, and here's the part many people don't want to hear. Sometimes you sense the secrecy, but you choose to ignore it. You convince yourself it's not worth fighting about, or that you're just being paranoid. You silence your instincts because the truth feels too heavy to bear. But ignoring secrecy doesn't protect you. It only delays the moment of truth. The cracks are still there, whether you look at them or not. Ask yourself this: why would someone who claims to love you need to live in shadows? Why would someone who swears loyalty feel the need to conceal, to guard, to deflect? Real loyalty doesn't need hiding places. It doesn't fear exposure. It doesn't collapse under simple questions. If transparency disappears, if secrecy becomes the new normal, it's because something is being hidden, and love doesn't require secrets. Now, I'm not telling you to turn into a detective, to obsess over every detail, to live in constant suspicion. That's not strength. That's fear. What I'm telling you is to honor what you see. Don't gaslight yourself into believing lies just because they're easier to swallow. If you see secrecy where there used to be openness, acknowledge it. If you feel the walls going up where there used to be windows, pay attention. Because every time you ignore secrecy, you're telling yourself that your peace of mind is less important than their comfort. And that's not loyalty to them. That's betrayal of yourself. The truth is simple. Loyalty loves the light. It thrives in openness, in honesty, in sharing. Disloyalty hides in the shadows, in locked screens, in unanswered questions, in broken patterns. So when transparency disappears, don't mistake it for privacy. Call it what it is: a warning sign. A sign that the person standing in front of you may no longer be standing with you. Your worth demands clarity. Your value demands honesty. And if someone can't give you that, then their secrecy has already answered the question you've been too afraid to ask. There is a kind of betrayal that doesn't show up in text messages or secret calls. It doesn't reveal itself through obvious lies or hidden behavior. Instead, it shows up in silence, in the invisible space that grows wider between two people who were once inseparable. Emotional distance, the silent betrayal. It's the kind of disloyalty that's hardest to prove, but the easiest to feel. You don't need evidence. You don't need screenshots or confessions. You feel it in your bones, in the emptiness where love used to live. At the beginning of any strong relationship, connection feels effortless. You can talk for hours and never run out of things to say. Even silence feels comforting because you're in sync, connected without needing words. There's warmth, presence, and genuine closeness. But when emotional distance begins to grow, that silence changes. It's no longer comforting. It's cold, heavy, awkward. You can be sitting right next to each other on the same couch, yet it feels like you're miles apart. That's the first sign something deeper is breaking. You'll notice it in the way conversations become shallow. Where there was once curiosity and deep sharing, now there are only surface-level exchanges. "How was your day?" becomes a routine phrase, asked out of obligation rather than genuine care. The laughter fades, the little moments of vulnerability vanish. What used to be easy now feels like pulling teeth. You ask questions, but the answers are short, clipped, lifeless. They're speaking to you, but they're not with you. Emotional distance often shows up in physical closeness too. It's not just about intimacy, it's about the energy behind the touch. A hug that used to feel warm now feels rushed. A kiss that once carried passion now feels like a chore. They may still go through the motions, but the spark is gone, and you can sense it. Because loyalty isn't just about staying physically present, it's about staying emotionally invested. And when that investment fades, so does the foundation of the relationship. What makes emotional distance so painful is that it leaves you questioning yourself. You start wondering if you did something wrong. You think maybe they're just tired. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe I'm imagining it. You make excuses for the emptiness because it hurts too much to admit that maybe their heart is no longer in it. But deep down, you know the truth. Distance doesn't happen by accident. It happens because one person is withdrawing their energy, their attention, their care. And here's the cruel part. Sometimes they'll still be physically present. They'll sit at the dinner table, they'll share the same bed, they'll play the role of partner, but emotionally, they're gone. Their mind is elsewhere. Their attention is divided. They're not dreaming with you anymore. They're drifting away. And the more you feel it, the more alone you become, even while being together. That is what makes emotional distance one of the most painful betrayals. People often underestimate how important emotional intimacy is. But without it, the relationship is nothing more than a shell. You can have a house, but if it's empty, it's not a home. You can have a partner, but if their heart isn't with you, you're not truly together. Emotional distance strips the relationship of its soul, and it leaves you clinging to memories instead of living in the present. One of the clearest signs of this betrayal is avoidance. They don't want to engage in difficult conversations anymore. They dodge serious topics, dismiss your concerns, or shut down completely when you try to connect. Where there was once openness, now there's resistance. And every time you're met with that wall, you feel smaller, less seen, less valued. That's the hidden wound of emotional distance. It makes you feel invisible in your own relationship. Here's what you must remember. Love doesn't vanish overnight. It fades when someone stops feeding it. It fades when energy, effort, and presence are withdrawn. If you feel the coldness, if you sense the emotional gap widening, don't ignore it. Don't convince yourself that this is just a phase. If the pattern keeps repeating, because distance left unchecked only grows larger. And if someone is choosing to pull away from you emotionally, it's because their loyalty is already shifting elsewhere, whether toward another person, toward themselves, or simply away from the relationship. The most dangerous part of emotional distance is how it slowly erodes your self-worth. You start doubting your value, questioning why you're not enough to hold their attention anymore. You replay conversations in your mind, trying to figure out what you did wrong. But here's the truth. Loyalty isn't proven by perfection. You don't have to be flawless to deserve closeness. If someone has decided to pull away, that's their choice, not your failure. Emotional distance is betrayal without words. It doesn't need confessions or evidence. It's the betrayal you feel in the quiet moments, in the way their eyes don't meet yours anymore, in the way their laughter no longer includes you, in the way the relationship feels heavy instead of light. And if you feel it, trust it, because pretending not to notice won't bring the closeness back. What you deserve is a connection that feels alive, a love that stays curious, that remains invested, that chooses you every single day. Don't settle for someone who's only there physically, but gone emotionally. Because that's not love, that's loneliness with a witness. And you are worth far more than being half-loved. So if you find yourself feeling this distance, don't silence that awareness. Don't excuse it. Don't let it become your normal. Demand the emotional presence you deserve. And if it's not given, have the courage to step away, because it's better to walk alone in truth than to stay chained to someone who's already left you in silence. In every strong relationship, priorities reveal the truth. You don't even need words to know where you stand. Just look at how someone spends their time, their attention, their energy. At the beginning, you were the center. You were the one they wanted to talk to. At the end of the day, the person they wanted to share victories and failures with, the one they carved out time for, no matter how busy life became. Because when someone truly values you, you are not an afterthought. You are woven into the fabric of their life. But when loyalty begins to fade, when disloyalty starts creeping in, the first thing that shifts is the way you fit into their priorities. Suddenly, you go from being essential to optional, and that change tells you more than their words ever will. It starts small, almost invisible. Maybe they stop calling as often as they used to. Maybe they cancel plans more frequently. Maybe they become less available, always tied up with something else. At first, you give them the benefit of the doubt. Everyone gets busy. Life happens. Work demands attention. Friends need them. Family obligations come up. But slowly, you begin to notice that the excuses are becoming patterns, and the patterns are becoming your new reality. Where once you were their go-to person, now you're waiting, hoping, and trying to fit into the scraps of time they offer you. When someone loves you with loyalty, they don't make you compete for their attention. They don't treat time with you like a burden. They don't put everyone and everything else before you. Loyalty shows up in priorities, who they call first, who they show up for, who they think about when they make decisions. And when you're no longer in that circle of importance, when you're suddenly left waiting in the background, it's because something has shifted. Think about how priorities reflect love in daily life. It's not about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about the consistency of choosing you. Choosing to check in, choosing to spend time, choosing to include you in plans, choosing to listen when those choices start disappearing. When you notice their energy being poured into other people, other places, other distractions, while you sit there wondering when it will be your turn again, that's not love. It's disloyalty in disguise. And here's a hard truth. Nobody is too busy for the people who matter. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have responsibilities, obligations, pressures. But when someone values you, they make room for you in that chaos. They don't just fit you into the empty spaces, they carve out space because you are a priority. So when someone says, I'm just too busy, what they're really saying is, you're not as important as what I've chosen instead. This shift in priorities can also show up in the way decisions are made. At one time, they considered you in everything, where they'd go, what they'd do, how they'd plan their future. But now you find out about things after the fact. They make plans without you. They create experiences where you're not included. They start living a separate life, and you're left wondering when you stopped being part of the team. That exclusion isn't just forgetfulness, it's a choice. And choices reveal where loyalty truly lies. Another sign of shifting priorities is when your needs become negotiable while theirs remain fixed. They expect you to be available, to understand, to compromise, to bend. But when it's your turn, suddenly there's no flexibility. Their plans, their friends, their work, their distractions all come before you. They may not say it outright, but their actions scream it. You don't come first anymore. And when someone stops choosing you, they've already chosen something else. What makes this betrayal so painful is that it makes you feel invisible. You start questioning your worth, wondering why you don't deserve the same attention you once had. You try harder, sending more messages, planning more time together, offering more of yourself. But the more you give, the less it seems to matter. Because loyalty can't be forced. If someone has shifted their priorities away from you, no amount of begging or proving will bring it back. The lesson here is simple, but it's one many people resist. Pay attention to where you fall on someone's priority list. Don't just listen to what they tell you, watch what they do. If they always find time for others but not for you, that's not love, that's a warning sign. If they constantly expect you to understand, but never offer you the same grace, that's not partnership, that's neglect. And if they only make you a priority when it's convenient for them, that's not loyalty, that's selfishness. And here's where you must be strong. Don't keep settling for being someone's option when you deserve to be someone's choice. Don't sit in the shadows of someone's life, waiting for them to remember you. Don't shrink yourself into the margins when you belong at the center of someone's heart. Because love, real love, doesn't push you aside. It doesn't make you fight for scraps. It doesn't make you wonder where you stand. Real love shows up every day and says, you matter, you're important, I choose you. When someone's priorities shift away from you, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away as a phase. Patterns speak louder than promises, and actions reveal the truth long before words do. If they're no longer choosing you, if they're no longer putting you at the center where loyalty lives, then you must have the courage to face that reality. Because it's better to accept the truth than to keep living in the illusion of a love that no longer exists. Remember this, the way someone prioritizes you is the clearest mirror of how much they value you. And if that mirror shows neglect, distance, and excuses, then it's time to stop fighting for their attention and start honoring your own worth. Because you deserve to be someone's priority, not their backup plan. There is a voice inside you that has been speaking all along. It's not loud, it doesn't shout. It whispers, it nudges, it tugs at you in quiet moments when you're still enough to notice. That voice is your intuition, and it has a way of knowing the truth long before your mind is ready to accept it. When loyalty starts to break down in a relationship, your intuition is the first alarm that goes off. You may not want to hear it, you may push it away, bury it under excuses, or drown it in distractions. But the truth is, your gut doesn't lie. And when it tells you something isn't right, you need to listen. Think back to moments in your life when you felt something before you knew it. Maybe you had a bad feeling about a person, a situation, or a decision. You couldn't explain it logically, but later you discovered you were right. That's intuition. Your body and soul picking up on cues your mind hasn't fully processed yet. It's a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from facts, but from instincts. And in relationships, it's one of the most powerful tools you'll ever have. When your partner is being disloyal, the signs may not always be obvious. They may cover their tracks, rehearse their stories, act the part. On the surface, things might even look normal, but inside you feel the shift. You sense the distance. You notice the inconsistencies. And even if you can't put your finger on exactly what's wrong, you know that's your intuition speaking. And ignoring it is one of the most dangerous mistakes you can make. The problem is, too many people silence their intuition because the truth is inconvenient. They don't want to believe their partner could betray them. They don't want to face the possibility that the relationship they've invested in is cracking. So they convince themselves they're overthinking. They say, I'm just being paranoid, I'm probably imagining things. But deep down they know, you always know. Your gut doesn't invent problems, it reveals them. You'll feel intuition in subtle ways. It may show up as uneasiness when your partner gives you an answer that doesn't feel complete. It may show up as tension in your chest when they suddenly become unavailable. It may show up in the way your energy changes around them. You feel more anxious than secure, more doubtful than reassured. These feelings aren't random. They are signals. Signals that something beneath the surface is wrong. Loyalty brings peace. When someone is loyal to you, you don't have to question their words, their actions, their choices. You feel secure in their presence. But when that loyalty is broken, even before the evidence appears, your peace disappears. And that disappearance is the first proof you need. Because trust isn't something you argue yourself into. It's something you feel. If you no longer feel it, it's because it's no longer there. Your intuition will often clash with your heart. Your heart wants to hold on, to hope, to believe in the best. Your intuition, though, tells you the truth, even when it hurts. The strength comes in choosing which one you will listen to. Do you cling to the comfort of denial, or do you trust the discomfort of truth? One path keeps you stuck. The other sets you free. Some people will even try to gaslight you when you follow your intuition. They'll say you're crazy, you're too sensitive, you're imagining things. And in that moment, you'll be tempted to doubt yourself. But hear this, people who are loyal don't need to convince you you're wrong for noticing things. They don't fear your instincts. They don't fight your questions. It's only those hiding something who need to discredit the voice inside you. Listening to your intuition doesn't always mean walking away immediately. Sometimes it means pausing and observing, watching the patterns, collecting the truth. But it does mean refusing to ignore what you feel. It means honoring yourself enough to say, if my gut tells me something is off, I will not silence it. That's not paranoia. That's self-respect. Here's a reality. Your intuition is part of your survival system. It has evolved to protect you, to guide you, to warn you. When you ignore it, you put yourself at risk. When you honor it, you protect your peace, your dignity, and your future. So if you feel that something isn't right in your relationship, trust that feeling. It doesn't mean you accuse without reason. It doesn't mean you lash out or assume the worst. It simply means you stay awake. You pay attention. You don't allow love to blind you to the truth. At the end of the day, you owe yourself honesty. And your intuition is the most honest voice you will ever hear. It doesn't care about appearances. It doesn't care about promises. It doesn't care about excuses. It simply tells you what your soul already knows. The question is, will you listen? Because here's the harsh truth. Your intuition will never betray you, but ignoring it will. Every time you silence it, you give power to lies. Every time you dismiss it, you allow disloyalty to grow. And every time you choose comfort over truth, you delay the healing you deserve. So when that quiet voice inside you whispers, don't turn away, don't smother it with fear or excuses, lean in, trust it, follow it, because your intuition is the one friend that will never lie, never deceive, never abandon you. And in a world where loyalty can be rare, that kind of honesty is a gift you cannot afford to waste. Loyalty is not something you should ever have to beg for. It's not something you should chase, question, or doubt. Loyalty is the foundation of love, and without it, everything else crumbles. If the signs are there, if communication has shifted, if secrecy has taken over, if emotional distance is widening, if priorities have changed, and if your intuition is screaming at you, then you already know the truth. The hardest thing you will ever do is face it. But the most powerful thing you will ever do is act on it. Because betrayal is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their weakness. You deserve a love that shows up, a love that doesn't hide, a love that makes you feel safe and valued. Anything less is a prison, and you were never meant to live locked in someone else's lies. So here's the message I want you to carry with you. Never ignore the signs, and never silence your gut. You are stronger than the betrayal, braver than the heartbreak, and wiser than the lies. Walk away from what dishonors you. Protect your heart. Protect your peace, and remember, losing someone who cannot be loyal to you is never a loss. It is freedom, it is clarity, it is the beginning of something better. And when you rise from it, you will not just survive, you will thrive, because no betrayal has the power to break someone who finally chooses themselves.